In a packed courtroom, tension crackled like static in the air. A critical case was unfolding, but when the black witness took the stand, something unsettling happened. The judge barely glanced his way, dismissing him with a thinly veiled indifference. What the judge didn't realize, though, was that this witness wasn't just anyone. He was a renowned law professor whose work was studied by some of the brightest legal minds in universities across the nation. As the proceedings carried on, the professor remained calm, his quiet confidence unsettling those who underestimated him. The lawyer questioning him knew exactly who he was, but the judge's obliviousness created a simmering tension that couldn't be ignored. When the truth of the professor's identity started to surface, it set the courtroom on edge. What happened next left everyone stunned, forcing the judge to reckon with his biases in real time. The courtroom was silent except for the rhythmic tapping of the judge's gavel, urging everyone to stay on track. But whispers rippled through the audience as people began recognizing the man on the stand. He wasn't just any professor. His groundbreaking work on justice reform had been quoted in landmark cases, and his lectures were legendary among legal scholars. Yet the judge remained oblivious, his dismissive tone sharpening with every question directed at the witness. The professor, however, didn't flinch. He spoke calmly, his words precise, answering each question with a quiet authority that seemed to fill the room. The lawyer questioning him couldn't hide their satisfaction, clearly anticipating the moment the judge would realize his mistake. Meanwhile, the jury sat up straighter, sensing they were witnessing something far bigger than the case at hand. The stakes were rising, and everyone in the room could feel the weight of what was unfolding. As the witness continued to testify, the judge's impatience grew more apparent. He interrupted frequently, his tone dripping with condescension, as if trying to undermine the professor's credibility. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. A few members of the jury exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to trust the judge's dismissive attitude or the witness's composed authority. Meanwhile, the lawyer defending the professor's side leaned into the discomfort, asking pointed questions that highlighted the depth of his expertise. Outside the courtroom, the story had already begun spreading. Reporters whispered in the hallway, piecing together the identity of the man whose testimony was reshaping the trial. Onlookers started to realize this was no ordinary witness. As details emerged about the professor's contributions to legal scholarship and social justice, the question loomed: why hadn't the judge recognized him? Was it arrogance, bias, or something deeper? Inside the courtroom, the professor's calm demeanor hinted at a storm brewing just beneath the surface. The air in the courtroom felt heavier with every passing moment. The professor's testimony was now drawing undeniable connections, shedding light on key details that could sway the entire case. Despite his calm tone, his words carried the weight of someone who understood the law on a level few in the room could rival. The lawyer on the opposing side tried to poke holes in his statements, but their attempts only seemed to emphasize his intellect and credibility. The jury appeared captivated, leaning forward as if hanging on to every word. The judge, however, seemed increasingly agitated. His dismissive attitude had shifted to unease, though he still masked it behind curt interruptions and an icy stare. The tension between them was impossible to ignore. Whispers from the gallery grew louder. People knew the professor's reputation now, and the judge's behavior was becoming harder to justify. The professor's poised answers only added fuel to the fire. Just as the courtroom seemed ready to erupt, the professor paused mid-sentence, locking eyes with the judge. It was clear he had something to say that no one was ready for, and the room held its breath, waiting for the moment that could change everything. The professor's pause stretched out, thickening the tension in the room. Finally, he leaned forward slightly and addressed the judge directly, his voice steady but sharp. Your Honor, he began, before I continue, may I remind the court of an important principle, one you've likely taught yourself. The judge froze, his hand hovering midair, as murmurs rippled through the audience. The professor wasn't just testifying now. He was subtly challenging the authority that had dismissed him from the start. Then the second twist came. The professor calmly referenced a pivotal case from years ago, one the judge had presided over. The details were eerily similar to the current trial, but what stunned everyone was the revelation that the professor had been involved behind the scenes, shaping the legal arguments that won that case. The courtroom erupted in gasps. The judge's face darkened, his mask of composure slipping. This wasn't just a witness. This man had indirectly influenced the judge's own career. As the revelation settled, the gallery buzzed with questions. Why was this connection hidden until now? And more importantly, what would the professor reveal next? All eyes were on him, knowing the moment of truth was fast approaching, but unsure of just how explosive it would be. The courtroom was silent again, the tension now almost unbearable. The professor, unfazed by the growing chaos, continued with quiet authority. Your Honor, I bring up that case not to question your rulings, but to show the court how deeply intertwined our lives have been in the pursuit of justice, whether you realized it or not. The judge's hands tightened on the edge of his bench, his frustration giving way to something resembling unease. Everyone could sense it. This wasn't just about the trial anymore. It was about accountability, perception, and power. The professor shifted his focus to the jury. Bias, whether intentional or not, can cloud judgment, he said firmly. But facts, reason, and the truth, these cut through everything. His words hung in the air like a challenge no one could ignore. And then, with a calm yet deliberate motion, he slid a document across the witness stand. It was proof, irrefutable evidence that turned the case on its head. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the lawyer opposing him quickly scanned the pages, their face draining of color. But just when the room thought it had seen everything, the professor delivered one last twist. Your Honor, he said, locking eyes with the judge, this document also includes a letter. A letter I wrote years ago, praising your rulings on fair treatment and justice. I believed in your integrity then, and I hope today serves as a reminder of the standard we all must uphold. The judge stared at the letter, his expression a mix of disbelief and reflection. The room was stunned into silence. The jury, visibly moved, seemed to grasp the weight of what had just unfolded. The professor's calm demeanor had exposed the truth, held the judge accountable, and reminded everyone of the values the courtroom was meant to uphold. It was a quiet but profound victory, one that left the courtroom forever changed. As the courtroom began to settle, the judge leaned back, visibly shaken. He glanced at the letter, the weight of the professor's words and actions pressing down on him. For a moment, it seemed like he might speak, but instead, he simply nodded, an unspoken acknowledgement of the lesson he'd just been taught. The professor stepped down from the stand, his composed demeanor never wavering, as the jury prepared to deliberate with a newfound clarity. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed to catch a glimpse of the man who had just turned an ordinary trial into a moment of reckoning. But the professor quietly slipped through the crowd, uninterested in the spotlight. For him, it wasn't about winning or proving a point. It was about standing up for truth and fairness. The trial left an indelible mark on everyone involved, a powerful reminder that justice only thrives when biases are challenged and integrity prevails.